7:30 can reveal that tomorrow the Gillard government will announce the nation's first ever population strategy. It's been more than a year in the making. You might remember the controversy the former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd caused when he declared he was in favour of a big Australia and appointed a population minister to come up with a plan for how the nation could deal with more people. When Julia Gillard took over, she swiftly backed away from that philosophy, instead preferring to talk about sustainability. But whatever words you choose to use, Australia is projected to add millions more people in the coming decades. 1.4 million in the next 3 years alone, in fact. Shortly, I'll have more details as to what the government's announcing tomorrow. But first, Lisa Whitehead has been visiting Weribee on the western fringe of Melbourne, one of the fastest growing regions in Australia.
Welcome to Weribee in Melbourne's west, once known as the country suburb, dotted with rural acreage and market gardens. Now it's slap bang in the middle of the fastest growing region in Australia, recently outstripping the Gold Coast as the nation's growth hotspot.
The growth that's occurred in the last 10 years has been, and more so in the last 5 years, has been quite phenomenal.
The local mayor has seen the influx of first home buyers and young families attracted by affordable housing on the city fringe and is now witnessing their frustration.
We're getting to the point now where we're bursting at the seams in a lot of respects in terms of our lack of services, in terms of education, kindergartens, hospitals and police numbers as well too. That can't continue.
It's changed so much in 17 years that it's just become a joke.
10 years ago, it took Hoppers Crossing resident Paul Pellegrino 20 minutes to drive the 20 kilometres to work near the CBD. Now it often takes him more than an hour.
I use the word horrendous. There's no other way to describe it.
With housing subdivisions eating up land on the fringe, 4,000 homes are planned for this new billion-dollar suburb in Weribee alone. He says without massive spending on infrastructure, the problems are only going to get worse.
I want to stand in those new suburbs with a plaque saying, if you're going to move in here, be careful because you won't be able to get out of your own suburb. That's how passionate I feel about it.
It's that depth of feeling that fuelled a community backlash in 2009 after then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd declared his support for a big Australia and a projected population of 36 million by 2050.
I actually believe in a big Australia. I make no apology for that.
In 2008-2009, Australia accepted a record 320,000 overseas migrants. Coupled with a strong birth rate, the country added 470,000 to its population in just 1 year.
This country has never added 470,000 people. Our systems are not geared to deliver the housing, the infrastructure. No wonder there was congestion and no wonder there was angst and concern from Australians, particularly in capital cities. So it had to be wound back.
And it was. That angst propelled Julia Gillard to reject any notion of population targets.
I don't believe in a big Australia. I don't believe in simply hurtling down a track to a 36 million or 40 million population.
The net overseas migrant intake has settled back to about half the record levels set 2 years ago. That's mainly due to a massive drop in the number of foreign students. But the permanent migrant intake for this year is set to rise slightly to 185,000, leaving the country on track to a so-called big Australia and a population of 36 million by 2050.
Melbourne grows from about 4 million now to about 6.5 million. Sydney from 4.4 to about 6.8 million, and so on in other capital cities. These are massive numbers, and the evidence is clear. We're not coping with the present population, let alone increases of that scale.
There's a small country towns being crystallised in localities in suburbia and on the coast.
Others, like KPMG demographer Bernard Salt, argue the country can't afford to reduce migration levels in the long term.
The problem occurs when the baby boomers start to leave the workforce. We've never been in this position before. The baby boomers start to retire from 2011, so we need to up the level of overseas migration to offset the retirement impact of baby boomers, to make sure there's enough net growth, skills, labour and tax to maintain the lifestyle that we've all become addicted to.
It is a problem, and we will have to adjust, and I think the way we do that is to better utilise our existing workforce.
The immediate dilemma for the federal government is how to match a two-speed economy with a two-speed immigration policy, with some parts of Australia desperate for workers and others desperate for jobs.
Go to the Wimmera, go to the Mallee, go to the Pilbara, go to the Kimberley, go to the Eyre Peninsula. All of these places are crying out for talent, for labour, for people.
This week's budget included a 60% boost to the regional sponsored migration scheme, where employers can sponsor a skilled migrant on the condition they live and work in the area for at least 2 years. Big mining companies with capital expenditure of $2 billion and more than 1,500 workers can also apply for fast-track entry for temporary semi-skilled workers.
Allow specific firms within a major project to sponsor people from their team down to semi-skilled, like bulldozer drivers and backhoe operators, to remote areas where it's difficult to attract these people.
Bernard Salt wants to see it taken a step further.
In the 1940s, the 1950s, when the Greeks and the Italians and others arrived here, we shot them off to Cooma to build the Snowy Mountain scheme, and it seemed to work well then. Why can't we do a similar type of scheme today? We do need the skills, we do need the labour, frankly we do need the tax of overseas migrants, but we really are stressed when those numbers arrive en masse in the western part of Sydney.